Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Jaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudiraye Nashtaprayeshu Abhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Ruttama-shloke Bhaktir-bhavati Naishtiki Om Ajnana-timirandasya Jnananjana-shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha Sri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayyam Dadati Svapadantikam Namam Viṣṇu Padaya Krishna Preshtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Nitinamine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Jaya Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, reading from Śrīmad Bhāgavatam. By His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. We are reading from Canto 4, Chapter 9, Dhruva Mahārāja returns home. So we are in the final section of this chapter. We will see Dhruva, the palace and the city description, and then we will see how the Uttanapad Maharaj he is going to retire and enthrone Dhruva as the king. So we are at text 64. Vapyo Vaidurya Sopanaha Padmotpala Kumatvasivatihi Hamsakarandava Kulaihi Jushtva Chakraha Sarasaihi. Translation.
There were emerald staircases which led to lakes full of variously colored lotus flowers and lilies, and swans, karandavas, chakravakas, cranes, and similarly other valuable birds were visible in those lakes. Purport. It appears that not only was the palace surrounded by compounds and gardens with varieties of trees, but there were small man-made lakes also, where the water was full of many-colored lotus flowers and lilies. And to get down to the lakes, there were staircases made of valuable jewels, such as emeralds. By the beautifully positioned garden houses, there were many luxuriant birds, such as swans, chakravakas, karandavas, and cranes. These birds generally do not live in filthy places like crows do. The atmosphere of the city was very healthy and beautiful. It can simply be imagined from its description. Hare Krishna.
So now this is the description of the swimming pool of Dhruva Maharaj, to put it very simply. Emerald staircases which led to the lakes full of variously colored lotus flowers and lilies, and there were such birds as swans, Karandava, Chakravaka, and the cranes. Sarasa, Hamsa, Sarasai is the crane. Okay. So Sarasai is the crane. A very special bird this is crane is. And especially in Ramayana, it has a very beautiful reference that Valmiki Muni saw these two Sarasa, they are having, beautiful Pranaya Krida, and suddenly one hunter comes and hits him, and, one of them dies. And the beauty about these crane birds is that this is the only species in the animal and the birds kingdom which doesn't select the second partner. Okay, so there is a beautiful reference to this in Ramayana. So, so that itself indicated that there is going to be a lot of viraha inside the Ramayana. Srila Prabhupada describes in the purport that these are all the man-made lakes also. So man-made lakes were used as the swimming pools or something like that. And they were multicolored lotus flowers, lilies, and there are these are different birds. Somebody may ask, where are these birds now? No, these birds don't live in a filthy place like the city. Okay, city we will be happy with the crows only. but these words do exist. All right. Text 65. Now 65, 66, 67, we are concluding this chapter, where we are seeing now King Uttanapad is retiring. Uttanapado rajarshir prabhavam tanayastama Shrutva drishtamadbhutam tamam pramede vismayam param. Translation.
Translation: The saintly King Uttanapada, hearing of the glorious deeds of Dhruva Maharaj, and personally seeing also how influential and great he was, felt very satisfied, for Dhruva's activities were wonderful to the supreme degree. Purport: When Dhruva Maharaj was in the forest executing his austerities, his father, Uttanapad, heard everything about his very wonderful activities. Although Dhruva Maharaj was the son of a king and was only 5 years old, he went to the forest and executed devotional service under strict austerity. Therefore, his acts were all wonderful, and when he came back home, naturally, because of his spiritual qualifications, he became very popular amongst the citizens. He must have performed many wonderful activities by the grace of the Lord. No one is more satisfied than the father of a person who is credited with glorious activities. Maharaja Uttanapad was not an ordinary king. He was a Raja Rishi, a saintly king. Formerly, this earth was ruled by one saintly king only. Kings were trained to become saintly, therefore, they had no other concern than the welfare of the citizens. These saintly kings were properly trained, and as mentioned in Bhagavad Gita, also the science of God or the yoga system of devotional service known as Bhagavad Gita was spoken to the saintly king of the sun planet, and gradually it descended through the Kshatriya kings who were generated from the sun and the moon. If the head of the government is saintly, certainly the citizens become saintly, and they are very happy because both their spiritual and physical needs and hankerings are satisfied. Hare Krishna.
Yes. Uttanapado rajarshi. So Uttanapad is also a great personality. And he is here called as Rajarshi. Prabhavam tanayastamaha. But he was very influenced by the prabhava of his own son. Shrutva drishtam. When he heard about the austerities that Dhruva did and personally saw the glorious spiritual qualities, pramede vismayam param, then he was very, very satisfied, and he was very wondered and very satisfied. In the purport, Srila Prabhupada writes, Uttanapad heard about the austerities of Dhruva, and it was the Dhruva Charitra, and he was always happy to hear the glories of Dhruva. So he heard about Dhruva's austerities, he personally saw, and just imagine how Dhruva must be famous in his kingdom. So this was very, very satisfying. Something similar happens in Raja Dasharath and his son Prabhu Ramachandra. And there is a beautiful description that when Dasharath Maharaji announces that the next king is going to be Ram, there is such tumultuous sound vibration, and there is such the roar of happiness everywhere, that Dasharath Maharaj feels guilty, that he was thinking, he asks his Sumantra, he says that and all the citizens are saying this is the best thing that the king has done, that he is now going to coronate the Raja, he is Prabhu Ramachandra as the next king. And then he asks Sumantra, and he says that, am I such a bad king that people are waiting for my retirement? And then Sumantra says, no, my dear king, your son is so glorious that people are simply happy at the prospect of Ramarajya. So Prabhupada says, no one is more satisfied than a father of a person who is credited with glorious activities. Natural affection of the father towards the child. Uttanapad also was a great personality. He was a Raja Rishi. And then Srila Prabhupada mentions, these Raja Rishis are very important, that they should know Bhagavad Gita. So the spiritual science was always taught, and therefore the person just not remained Raja, he became Raja and Rishi, right, simultaneously. And modern times also, till we can see such great Raja Rishis, Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaj, Raja Ranjit Singh, and there are so many personalities. Even our Modi ji is a great Raja Rishi. He is a Raja, is the Prime Minister in the modern context, and he's a Rishi, very, very saintly personality. So this knowledge of yoga system and specifically devotional service is known to be taught to such Raja Rishis. Prabhupada says, if the head of the government is saintly, certainly the citizens will also become saintly, right? And they will be happy both in their spiritual and physical needs, both. Text 66. So as we say, yatha raja tatha praja. So I mean, it is a great responsibility of the raja to be of the spiritual character, so that praja also imbibes those spiritual characters. Later in the Ambarish story, we will see, because Ambarish Maharaj himself was such a qualified king, all the citizens were also equally qualified, simply because their king was also so qualified. Right. Text 66. वीक्षोढवयसं तं च प्रकृतीनां च सम्मतम् अनुरक्तप्रजं राजा ध्रुवं चक्रे भुवः पतिम्. Translation.
When after concentration, the King Uttanpada saw that Dhruva Maharaj was suitably mature to take charge of the kingdom, and that his ministers were agreeable, and the citizens were also very fond of him, he enthroned Dhruva as emperor of this planet. Purport: although it is misconceived that formerly the monarchical government was autocratic, from the description of this verse, it appears that not only was King Uttanapada a Rajarsi, but before installing his beloved son Dhruva on the throne of the empire of the world, he consulted his ministerial officers, considered the opinion of the public, and also personally examined Dhruva's character. Then the king installed him on the throne to take charge of the affairs of the world. When a Vaishnava king is like Dhruva Maharaj, it is the head of the government of the entire world. The world is so happy that it is not possible to imagine or describe. If people would all be Krishna conscious, the democratic government of the present day would be exactly like the kingdom of heaven. If all people became Krishna conscious, they would vote for persons of the category of Dhruva Maharaj. If the post of chief executive were occupied by such a Vaishnava, all the problems of satanic government would be solved. The youthful generation of the present day is very enthusiastic in trying to enthrone the government in different parts of the world. But unless people are Krishna conscious like Dhruva Maharaj, there will be no appreciable changes in government, because the people who hanker to attain political position by hook or crook cannot think of the welfare of the people. They are only busy to keep their position of prestige and monetary gain. They have very little time to think of the welfare of the citizens. Hare Krishna.
After a great contemplation, King Uttanapad saw three things. First is, Dhruva Maharaj was suitably mature to take charge of the kingdom. Second is, ministers were agreeable. And the third, the citizens also very fond of him. He enthroned Dhruva as the emperor of this planet. Okay, of course, we stay away from any political comments. But Dhruva Maharaj did not become Rahul Gandhi, in simple words, what it means, this shloka is. So, three things. Dhruva was suitably mature. Second is, ministers were agreeable. And third is, citizens were also very fond of him. In the purport, Srila Prabhupada explains that although it is misconceived that the Raja government means forcibly the next person will become the king, here it is very clear description that before installing his beloved son Dhruva, the emperor consulted the ministers. He also considered opinion of the public, and he also personally examined Dhruva's characters, all three. Right? He consulted the ministers. Second, he considered the opinion of the public, Loka Sangraha. It's very important. And then he saw his own way whether Dhruva is mature to handle such a responsibility. And then he was installed to take charge of the take charge of the kingdom. So the Prabhupada says when the Vaishnava king, like Dhruva Mahārāja, is heading the government, world will be extremely happy. First thing they will do is, they will enforce these 4 regulative principles. They will shut down all the slaughterhouses. They will, stop the circulation of the wine, production and circulation of the wine. These are the first 2 things any Vaishnava government will do. Srila Prabhupada had a disciple, and he said that, Prabhupada, I'm going to contest the election in America. And he, had his own Jahirnama, and in that he said, when I become the corporator or their mayor of that city, I will ensure that there is no meat eating, no gambling, no intoxication, all 4 regulative principles, he said. And of course, who is going to vote such a person in America, even in those days, even today also? But he got some votes, and he came back and he said that, Prabhupada, I could not win. And Prabhupada said, how many votes you got? He said that I got 127 votes. And Prabhupada said, amazing. Just find out these 127 people and preach to them. They will become nice devotees. Okay. So Prabhupada says, even now, if the people become Krishna conscious and they vote for a person who is like Dhruva, the world can be instantly turned into a Vaikuṇṭha. Actually, one can see that, it is not so difficult. During that lockdown period, so many things had happened, right? There were the peacocks were coming, dancing on the roads of Mumbai. So all those things we have witnessed just, 5 years back, 2020 era. So, we have just unnecessarily complicated the whole thing. And Prabhupada says here, otherwise, the youthful generation of the present day is very enthusiastic in trying to overthrow the government in different parts of the world. Now, this purport is written 60 years back. Currently, the same thing is happening. Nepal, Sri Lanka, Bangladesh, right? Some parts of Europe. Everything same thing is happening, that the Gen Z is not satisfied with the government. They want to just overthrow the government. Government wants to somehow bribe the people by. And this kind of a government, people simply hanker for the political position by hook or crook. Now, some elections will go on. You just don't know who goes with whom. And, nowadays it becomes so dirty. But thinking the dirt, devotee should not refrain from voting, right? We have to vote for a party which will take ahead the cause of Sanatan. Sometimes, this is another trap of Maya, that we may think that, everybody is so dirty. But within that dirt, we have to at least vote for somebody who is less dirty and who is aligned to the Vedic principles. Otherwise, the politicians, Prabhupada writes, have little time to think of the welfare of the citizens, and they are simply busy in their prestige and the monetary gain. Text 67. Atmanam cha pravasayam akalaya vishampatihi vanam viraktah pratishtita vimrishan atmanagatim. Translation.
After considering his advanced age and deliberating on the welfare of his spiritual self, King Uttanpada detached himself from worldly affairs and entered the forest. But this is the sign of a Rajarshi. King Uttanpada was very opulent and was emperor of the world, and these attachments were certainly very great. Modern politicians are not as great as kings like Maharaj Uttanpad, but because they get some political power for some days, they become so much attached to their positions that they never retire unless they are removed from their posts by cruel death or killed by some opposing political party. It is within our experience that the politicians in India do not quit their positions until death. This was not the practice in olden days, as it is evident from the behavior of King Uttanpad. Immediately after installing his worthy son, Dhruva Mahārāja, on the throne, he left his home and palace. There are hundreds and thousands of instances like this in which kings in their mature age would give of their kingdoms and go to the forest to practice austerity. Practice of austerity is the main business of human life. As Maharaj Dhruva practiced austerity in his early age, his father, Maharaj Uttanpad, in his old age also practiced austerity in the forest. In modern days, however, it is not possible to give up one's home and go to the forest to practice austerity. But if people of all ages would take shelter of the Krishna consciousness movement and practice the simple austerities of no illicit sex, no intoxication, no gambling, and no meat eating, and chant the Hare Krishna Mahamantra regularly 16 rounds, by this practical method, it would be a very easy task to get salvation from this material world. Thus end the Bhaktivedanta purports of the 4th canto, 9th chapter of the Śrīmad Bhāgavatam, entitled Dhruva Mahārāja Returns Home.
Yeah. Atmanam cha pravasayam. Pravasayam means old age. Okay, so this is pravasayam. Vayasa and pravayasa, old age. Akalaya vishampatihi. Akalaya means understanding that my age is now growing, I am becoming old. Vanam virakta pratishtam vimbrisham atmanogatim. The king detached himself and entered the forest. Considering his advanced stage and deliberating on the welfare of his own spiritual self. Right. The king detached himself and proceeded to forest. And in the purport, Srila Prabhupada describes the importance of Vanaprastha life. Right. And this is the prominent sign of a Rajarishi. What is the sign? Although King Uttanapad was very, very opulent, and he was not like the modern day politician where they have to go to the public scrutiny every 5 years. No, he was, the king. He was emperor of the world. But still, he decided to retire timely. Srila Prabhupada says the modern times, the politicians, they are not as great as Uttanapad because they will sit to the position, they will capture the position practically till death. Either they are killed in some encounter, in some, the mishap, or they will die, till then they will hold on to the position. And Prabhupada says, in our experience, Prabhupada experience, Prabhupada is talking about Nehru and Gandhi, that people holding to the position till practically to the point of death. But this was not the practice in the previous time. The king practiced austerity, and when there was a suitable time, the king handed over kingdom to the Rajaputra if he is qualified, if ministers are agreeing, if public is also in favor. And then he himself focused on his own welfare and went to the forest. Prabhupada says here, the practice of austerity is the main function of the human form of life. Right. Later in the 5th canto, this Rishabhadev Maharaj will very clearly say that, 5.5.1, that practice the austerity. Dhruva performed austerity in the early age. Now Maharaj Uttanapad, he is going to perform austerity in the advanced age. And Prabhupada says, but this kind of austerity going to Vana is not possible in Kali Yuga. Because Kali Yuga, there is hardly any Vana is there. And therefore, one has to remain at home and one should practice the spiritual principles of austerity, following 4 regulative principles and chanting regularly 16 rounds. And by this practical method, it will be very easy task to get salvation from this material world. And this is how we conclude the chapter. Dhruva Mahārāja returns home. So it's a beautiful chapter. We have seen so many things, so much of emotions in this chapter are there. So we come to the 10th chapter. So is there any question, comment? We have another 5 minutes. Any discussion?
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Prabhuji, was there any past karmas of Dhruva Maharaj which entitled him to be elevated in 6 months and to seek the darshan of the Lord and also see Narada Muni, Prabhuji?
Very, very wonderful question. Yes and no, both. Past karma of Dhruva was that he will be insulted at that age. past karma of Dhruva is that he will be a very determined personality within his personality, right? But appearance of Narada is not past karma. And his choice of free will, his free will of choosing devotional service is not past karma. Getting this point?
Yes,
So
Prabhuji,
he was
very nicely
insulted
put.
by past karma. Okay. So what it means is that our karma will decide what happens to us, but it is our free will which will decide how we respond to what happens to us. This is a very important thing. So that's how, you know, and in a way, our what is our response can also be largely predicted based on the guna in which we are in. And how the guna comes because of the past karma. So from that perspective, one can see practically everything is fixed. You will say, Prabhuji, what is this? What is happening to me is fixed. Fixed. What is my reaction is based on guna. That is yes. And then what guna I will be in, that is also previous life. So mere haath mein kya hai? We have the free will. That living entity, the Atman, is always greater than guna at any point of time. Later we will see Ajamil stooped in tamoguna, but one decision he makes, and the whole life is changed. So this is the ichha shakti of a living entity. So yes and no, both. Right?
Hare Krishna Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna.
Dandavat Pranam Prabhuji. Prabhuji, I had a question that when sun is qualified, so we see the example of Dhruva or Lord Rama, but when sun is not qualified, then he's not given the kingdom. And I don't remember the name. In Mahabharata, it comes where king himself kills his sons. So can you elaborate on this, or if you like some other example when sun is not qualified to take the kingdom?
When sun is not qualified to take the kingdom, then there are multiple other arrangements would be done. One thing is that this killing the sun and other things must be some Puranic story, which is like coming from some Purana, which is in the mode of Rajogun, Tamogun kind of a things. Okay, so but, I mean that is never the case. So or that must be some extreme thing, like the son must be such a debauchee that he deserved the death punishment by the king, and the king being very impartial, he executed that punishment for the. But apart from that, but then what happens is, then one will adopt a suitable son, right? Or one may also give away the kingdom, in charity to some another king, that you rule my kingdom. And these were the practices that, so that, because the nowadays what happens, the politician will treat is only his family as the family, but for the king, entire praja is the family, right? In fact, the word very very praja means prajayate, it's like the extended family. So the king will not feel that, if king will undergo the personal inconvenience for the welfare of the praja. Classic example is Lord Ram. Of course, it's a leela, but one can see from that perspective, for the the comfort of the praja, he did the greatest sacrifice. So either he will take somebody as dattak or adoption, or he will annex his kingdom to some other suitable king, and he himself will go to Vana. These are generally the two options the king will follow. Right?
Okay, Prabhuji. Thank you.
Modern times also you can see that, like Warren Buffett. I mean, he donated his 99% of the property. He had 3 children, and he said that my child doesn't need so much of money. He gave them some 2 millions each. He said, this is enough for you. And he donated his entire property, billions of dollars, right? Same with Bill Gates. Of course, Bill Gates in news for some other reasons nowadays. But the positive side of him is one can see that he also donated his more than 95% of the property. So this is there that, yeah, please, somebody. Jai. So we will conclude here and continue tomorrow. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Hare
Gauda
Krishna,
Bhakta
Prabhuji.
ki jai. Yes, Prabhu.
Yeah, so I just want to ask one question. Prahlad Maharaj went to forest for the tapasya because of the harsh word used by Suruchi. Okay. But how to handle situation in the present life? You know, if someone uses a harsh word, or how to also handle the situation when even after repeatedly saying or giving the instruction after soft words people doesn't understand, then how to handle that situation also without being using the harsh word.
Yeah, nice question. So, how to handle the harsh behavior of the people? So, there are two types of people. One is they are avoidable or unavoidable. If we come across harsh behavior of the people who are avoidable, then sometimes then better to find ways and means and just stay away from that kind of a behavior. Second thing is if it's coming from unavoidable people, like our own husband is only sometimes becoming harsh, or wife is becoming harsh, or children sometimes, or boss sometime, or something like that. Then one thing is that we have to see what is the cause of that harsh behavior. Generally, what is the general experience is that wife will be angry at the home most of the time because things are not kept at place, or bahut, we are staying in the house like a hostel or something like that. And if you see, generally the husband wife fights, they revolve around the key 3-4 points, key 3-4 points. So if then how to avoid it? By avoiding our own behavior which provokes that kind of a harsh behavior. Sometimes we may comment something, we may be in a joking mood, but but that comment may be very insulting to other person, and other people are laughing, we are also laughing, but other person is put into humiliation, and that is going to have a good reaction later. So so we have to see what is the cause, and accordingly we have to handle it, right?
Thank you, Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Thank you Prabhupada. Thank you everyone. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhupada. Thank you, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhupada.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
Thank
Hare
you,
Krishna.
everyone. Hare
Thank you,
Krishna.
Prabhupada. Thank you, Prabhupada.